Welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We are your two hosts. I'm Tucker.
And I'm... Sorry, something feels off. Who's that?
Here's Snooplax.
Wait, why are you here? What the fuck are you doing to my door?
I'm just here to drink to a movie. I brought drinks.
Well, in that case, climb aboard, sailor.
To make an official introduction, this is our friend Snooplax. Snooplax is well known in the N64 community as he has frequently done playthroughs of ROM hacks to games such as Mario 64, Zelda, Smash 64, and Paper Mario. While his content isn't quite horror related, we seriously enjoy the stuff that he puts out. If that kind of content happens to interest you, we recommend you checking out his channel. The link for Snooplax's channel will be in the description below.
Well, thank you, Alex.
Today, we will be joined by Snooplax as we will be making a drinking game for The Shining. The Shining is directed by Stanley Kubrick, who is a fairly well-known director for directing other hit movies such as A Clockwork Orange and 2001: A Space Odyssey. The movie is also written by Kubrick, Diane Johnson, but most notably Stephen King, as it is based off of his book.
Stephen King is known as one of the most popular horror writers of all time, and that can be seen by how many live adaptations of his books were made into movies, such as Pet Sematary, Carrie, Misery, and It.
Back to The Shining, however, as it takes place in the Overlook Hotel in Colorado, where Jack just received a job offer as the new caretaker for the winter months. Jack moves into the hotel with his wife Wendy and his son, Danny. Danny has a special power, as does the cook, Dick Halloran, which he calls The Shining.
This power gives Danny the ability to see things that happened in the past, as well as the ghosts that are left behind. This is quite scarring for a child though, as he takes witness to several horrific events that happened in the hotel in the past. As Jack starts to descend into madness, Wendy and Danny are tasked with trying to escape the hotel that is cut off from the outside world, as blizzards from Colorado have completely isolated the family from civilization for the entire winter.
From here on, we will be getting into spoiler territory, so by any chance if you have not seen The Shining, we recommend that you see it now. It is a horror movie classic, but be warned, it is a fairly long movie. However, that still does not deter us from suggesting that you watch the movie with our drinking rules, since the movie is a staple of the horror genre. With that out of the way, let's move on to the rules.
The first rule we will have for each horror movie drinking game is death. If you see somebody die, you take a drink. The total number of deaths for this movie we saw was 6. We did end up including deaths in the story about the last caretaker, Delbert Grady, which tripled the number of drinks for this movie, as our total number of drinks for this movie was 6.
The next rule that we will always have here on Cheers to Fears is that if you hear somebody scream, cry, or yell, you take a sip. Closer to the end of this movie, there was a great increase in screams, cries, and yells, mainly due to Wendy. The total number of screams, cries, and yells in this movie was 19 by our count.
Now onto the drinking rules that we have exclusively for The Shining. The first one that we have today is that if there's a scene where you hear Tony talking, you take a sip. Throughout the movie, we heard Tony talk 7 times, so we took 7 sips to match.
Remember what Mr. Halloran said.
Next up, we have a rule is if you see Jack typing or somebody talks about how he was a writer, you take a sip. In this movie, this occurs 7 times.
We have to take 9 sips for this next rule. That rule is that if there is a text scene transition, take a sip, my friend. With most of these transitions, they are generally a day of the week, but on some occasions they do say something different.
Now we have come to the rule that if you hear somebody say 237, or if you see 237 written down in text, you take a sip. A fun fact that in the book, the room was 217 and not 237. For room 237 in the film, however, it was presented 11 times.
A rule that we can never pass up on is if you see somebody take a sip of alcohol, or in this movie, mention drinking, join them and have a sip. This did not occur often in the movie, as it is yet another rule that resulted in us having 7 sips.
When Danny's shine is being used, go ahead and take a sip, is the next rule that we have in place. We only included instances where Danny had access to information he shouldn't, or if he is seeing any ghosts in the Overlook Hotel. We also did not include any instances on where he was talking to Tony. This rule gave us a nice and even 10 sips.
The next rule, you take a sip when you see a ghost of the Overlook Hotel. This rule helped increase the total as it gave us an additional 18 drinks.
Last but certainly not least, in terms of number of drinks, was if you hear the word torrents, you take a sip. This was by far the most drinks we had for any other rule in this movie, as this rule gave us an additional 32 sips to add to our total.
A little slow tonight, isn't it? Yes, it is, Mr. Torrance.
And that is all that we have in place for The Shining. The total number of drinks for this movie by our count comes to 126 sips, which is the equivalent of drinking slightly over 4 standard 12-ounce cans. That number, of course, is based off of our 30 sip per can scale.
I guess one thing to note for drinking to The Shining is that the film is 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
So, despite this being kind of an average drinking game in the sense that it's 126 drinks, it's less than a drink per minute, so it really drags on.
Yeah, it's pretty well paced, and there are times where you kind of feel like you're not taking a drink for a while, and I did catch myself a couple times just taking a casual sip in between, just because, like you said, it is 2.5 hours.
Yeah. It doesn't feel 2.5 hours though, you know? Like, the movie is paced so well that no part really seems to drag when you're watching it. Though.
Yeah, and because of that, the drinking, like, it does kind of feel like you're casually drinking, but because you're so engaged in the movie, and because that the drinking is so well paced, you're able to still be engaged with the movie and, like, pay attention to what's going on as well.
Yeah, it was a pretty good pace. The only parts where it was a lot was when they kept saying torrents in certain scenes.
There was a few times. I think a couple times in particular where we actually mercy ruled that.
Yeah,
we were watching it yesterday, but that was the only difficult rule at times, I guess. Most of it wasn't too bad.
Especially the scenes with Delbert Grady, where it's Delbert Grady saying, "So, what are you going to do now, Mr. Torrance?" I don't think he ever says that, but...
Oh, yeah. No, I don't
But
understand.
them in the bathroom, it's quite a few.
Yeah, the Torrance a lot. And I don't know, these rules seem really easy to remember, too. I don't do this that often, but these rules were so easy to remember. I feel like with other movies, it's a little bit harder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So some rules that we didn't have is if you see an overhead shot, which doesn't happen a lot, or same with the hedge maze or the blood elevator. But again, those don't happen a lot, so we didn't really add them in. But they're so synonymous with the film, I wouldn't blame other people for adding them in.
Yeah, well, the reason we didn't include them is they're kind of scene specific.
Oh, definitely.
Like, they happen one instance in the movie, but we don't really see it as often throughout
Exactly,
the film,
yeah.
so that's why we didn't end up including it. I guess.
It's the same thing with Red Rum, though, right?
Oh,
like,
exactly.
you see that, like, quite a few times in one scene, but it's basically 5 drinks throughout the movie.
Red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum. Stop it! Red rum, red rum, red
Or when it's all work no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
I joked to Luke about how it's a good thing we're not drinking for every time that's said, because there's like 1,500 pages of it. But as iconic as these scenes are, like we said, they just pretty much happen for one scene, and we don't really see them return, so that's why we didn't include them.
If we're talking about The Shining, we have to talk about the production and the directing of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Like, for instance, the blood elevator scene, like, so iconic, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I heard that in the trailers at the time, it was not okay for them to have blood in a trailer back then. So they just said it was rusty water. But, that blood elevator scene also. I heard that it took 3 shots to get it just right, but each time it took 9 days.
Yeah.
So that's like 27 days. You know? Like, that's insane.
Oh yeah, it would be pretty brutal having to set that up, I could imagine. And the fact that they did that 3 times just goes to prove how crazy Stanley Kubrick is of a director.
Yeah.
It's an impressive shot, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, Stanley Kubrick works hard for the things that he wants to get perfect.
Yeah.
One example of that is Shelley Duvall, the girl who played Wendy, went through hell.
Oh yeah.
For example, Jack Nicholson said that it was the hardest role that he's ever seen an actor do.
Yeah, and with Duvall's case, she suffered from hair loss, nervous exhaustion, and illness while they were filming, and that again just shows how intense those roles were for those actors and actresses.
Yeah, there was just so much that she went through. Like, I guess another thing is that Stanley Kubrick said not to sympathize with her so she would feel more hopeless.
Yeah.
I guess, the role gave her a constant state of hysteria, so much so that she was crying all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So she needed water on set so she could continue to cry because she ran out of tears.
Yeah. Well, and she probably was legitimately crying in most of those scenes that she's so hysterical in.
Like, an example of what Duvall went through is the staircase scene, pretty iconic scene, where she's swinging the bat. They retook that scene 127 times, which I think broke a record for the most retakes of any movie scene.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. I couldn't imagine. It wasn't only draining for Shelley Duvall, but even on Jack Nicholson, because obviously 127 takes, no matter who you are, is going to be pretty draining.
I mean, Jack Nicholson kind of had it rough, but definitely not as rough as Shelley Duvall. Like, I think the worst that he went through is obviously the 127 takes.
Yeah.
But I mean, they also fed him cheese sandwiches on set just to get him super irritated because he hated them.
Yeah.
That was about all he really went through. There was probably a little bit more, though.
Oh, I'm sure there was. Maybe that we just don't know about. But there was one actor that was treated well by Kubrick, which was Danny Lloyd, who played Danny, the child actor. Kubrick would play ball with him and even called him and congratulated him when he graduated from the 12th grade.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly there was one person he actually liked on set and treated well. And I guess it's a good thing because he was a kid, so it makes sense to treat him well.
Yeah, I guess one of the cast members brought a chessboard, and Kubrick, being like such a fan of chess, took the day off just to play chess with him. I believe it was one of Dick Halloran's friends in the movie that rented him a snowcat.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, basically Kubrick just stopped the day of shooting and played chess with him all day, and he only beat Kubrick, I think, one time maybe. So clearly Kubrick knows his chess.
Oh yeah. I guess for the movie, like, it's obviously a good movie, and in a sense it's exhausting to get through because it's 2.5 hours, which is a big chunk of time, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah. For me, it doesn't feel like it's that hard to get through, just because, like Luke mentioned in the beginning, it's paced really nicely and it doesn't seem to drag on in any scenes. But I know what you're saying, 2.5 hours, it is a commitment, and I could get how it's exhausting just seeing all the actors and I guess characters of the movie just descend into madness and insanity. That could take a toll, I guess, and make it a little bit exhausting, but overall I thought it was pretty easy to get through personally.
Yeah.
There's a lot of foreshadowing in it, like the foreshadowing to Jack being from the hotel in the past. Like, Daddy asked his dad if he likes the hotel, and his response is that he wished that they could be there forever and ever and ever, which is not only a reference on what the Grady twins said earlier in the film, but that Jack was always the caretaker of the hotel. Jack said it was almost like he knew what was behind every corner earlier in the film also.
Yeah, so I feel like that's really interesting. It's basically foreshadowing to he was always the caretaker, which not a lot of people really get, especially if you were to see the film for the first time.
Oh yeah, if it's your first time, I don't think you would catch it.
Definitely
Going
not.
back to rewatch it, how many times I've seen it, I don't even know, but
Yeah.
you can see the hints early on in the movie, and it's a good way to foreshadow to it without directly telling us.
Yeah.
So I guess another point to be made about Kubrick is that it's often a conspiracy theory that he directed the moon landing and that the moon landing was just a big hoax in the end. And so I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but I think it must have been. But in one of the scenes, Danny's wearing a little knitted sweater and it says Apollo 11 and has the space shuttle on it. And I feel like Kubrick did that intentionally just to kind of poke fun at that whole conspiracy theory. And I'm not sure how many people catch that, especially now in modern times. I'm sure a lot of people catch it, but I thought that was funny to see. It kind of made me chuckle.
Another kind of cool detail is how the line about how the twins tried to burn down the hotel, so Grady corrected them, referencing the book and the only way to beat the hotel. So it's kind of crazy to think that the only way that these little girls could beat this evil hotel was they had to burn it down, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
And that ended up killing them in the end.
Yeah.
And tried to burn it down. But I corrected them, sir.
And the characters in this movie were just unbelievable. Like, Jack was such an interesting character to watch, just seeing him descend into madness just slowly throughout the film. Just played so well and so perfectly. Probably like one of the most iconic film roles in history for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, Jack Nicholson played that role so well. Like, even just the way his eyebrows kind of arch, it's perfectly casted.
The one thing that I am disappointed about Jack is he does this thing where he's like yelling but whispering at the same time, so I'm not sure if he's yelling or not.
That made it hard to count the screams or
Exactly.
yells, but
Yeah.
ever thought about my responsibilities?
Oh, Dick, what are you talking about?
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities? Have you ever thought for a single solitary moment about my responsibilities to my employers?
But that's okay. It does play into his madness as well by doing that.
Yep.
So
I heard that Jack Nicholson was a volunteer firefighter.
okay.
So originally they had like a fake door that he was gonna break down with the axe, but he broke it down so easily because he had experience using an axe, so the prop department had to like buy like real doors.
Yeah.
So I feel like Jack's performance is so good that it almost overshadows Shelley Duvall's performance as Wendy. So obviously she went through so much shit during filming, and she had this sense of no escape because she was basically crammed into a corner in a sense. Felt like she was completely alone. It was really convincing that she was in a constant state of hysteria. So like, I guess even like the small scenes where she was just calling the radio operator and just like trying to have a friendly conversation with him just shows us in the movie how truly alone she felt. Where the only one she could really contact is like some radio operator that she barely knows, right?
Yeah. It was a good way to give us a peek into her like mental state, I guess, and how, like you said, how she did feel so alone, and like Jack was just a straight up asshole to her the whole time, and like
When I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. How do you think you can handle that?
even when they were driving up to the hotel before any of this started happening, he was so disconnected from his family and just kind of felt like they were a nuisance more than anything. But speaking of his family, there was also Danny, who is another prevalent character in the film, which he was played by Danny Lloyd, and even for a kid actor, he did a pretty good job in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
Like, there wasn't a ton of emotion, but also that's believable as a kid, because sometimes kids are just monotone. Like, you know, if they're shy, they won't be talking a lot or whatever, won't be super outgoing. Yeah. But the scenes involving Tony, where you have to change his voice and stuff like that, like that was really cool. Well done for a child actor.
So I guess overall thoughts on the film, Snooplax, what do you think?
I really like The Shining. It's probably my favorite horror film. I just find it so interesting. The fact that every time you watch it, you're gonna pick up more details and and it just the plot and everything. I like kind of like the more confusing films, like the Pulp Fictions, like stuff like that, where when you watch it, you're kind of piecing together the puzzle, and they're not just spoon feeding you the plot, you know.
And on top of that, I think that the acting and like the cinematography, the set design was awesome. Like from the Overlook Hotel in general, the inside and out, then you have the hedge maze and like all those scenes, like they're so iconic and memorable because of the sets involved with it.
Yeah, like honestly, you can name like probably 5 scenes off the top of your head, and all of them are like very iconic. Like the hedge maze, the twins, Here's Johnny. Like,
exactly.
There's so many scenes. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Like, there's so many iconic scenes to choose from. Like, you can't just pick one. Like, there's just too much in the movie. Red Rum.
Yeah.
That's 5 there, I think.
There's so many.
And finally, we come to the award ceremony, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee, the Darwin Award. This award can go out to a character that made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, somebody else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have been easily avoided. This award can also be given to a character that is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is Danny, for not taking Dick's advice and staying out of room 237.
Next up is Dick Halloran, for leaving Florida only to get murdered by Jack. His intentions were good, but honestly, if he just called local authorities, they could have sent a snowcat themselves and checked on the hotel if somebody's life was in danger.
The last nominee today is Wendy, for not knowing how to open a pantry door that she has probably used for the past several months.
And the winner is Dick, for walking into a deadly situation unarmed instead of getting local authorities to do so instead. It is also worth mentioning that he knew that it was a dangerous situation because of his shine. He knew exactly what he was getting himself into, and it ultimately led to his death.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into The Shining. Make sure to subscribe to Snooplax, as the video could not have been done without him. If you end up playing the drinking game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know in the comments what you think is the most iconic scene from The Shining.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel as well, so you don't miss the next week's episode, where we are going to be making a drinking game for the latest James Wan movie, Malignant. which was released today in theaters. If you want to check out one of Snooplax's videos, click on the box on the top right, or if you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies that we review here on Cheers to Fears, click on the box below it.
Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying
Cheers to Fears.
Here's Johnny.